Hi, everybody, and you're very welcome along to episode 6, season 5 of our Keep It Simple series all about property. Now, I know I sound like I'm harping on about this, but I'm still getting continuous questions from landlords. What's the difference between the big landlord and the smaller landlord when it comes to the new legislation? So, today I just want to go into more depth on the smaller landlord. Basically, a smaller landlord is defined as a person who owns and rents out 3 or less than 3 residential properties. Just bear in mind, this does not include the home you live in. So this new six-year tenancy rule will apply from March 2026. So basically that means that all new tenants from the 1st of March 2026 will automatically have a 6-year lease. So even though you may have a different contract in place, that 6-year lease will automatically apply. That's an important point. And you can't evict a tenant, or in other words, if a tenant is in compliance, there's only 2 ways that a small landlord can move a tenant out of a property. And that is if a family member, you've got to move a family member back in, or if you as a landlord are suffering under severe financial pressure, or for example, your health could be affected, you might be bankrupt, you could be going through divorce. So at the end of the 6-year period, then you can end the tenancy under the standard, given the proper notice, the standard OTB clauses. We know you're selling, you're doing substantial renovations, you or your family member want to move back in, you're changing the use of the property. They will still apply. Now, I've been asked the question as well, when can you raise the rents? So during the 6 years, you can still raise the rent once a year, but only within the limits, only within that 2% limit, or now, as you know, for new builds, in line with inflation. So, and if the tenant leaves voluntarily, or if the tenant breaches the lease during the 6 years, then you can go in at full market rent. And obviously, at the end of the 6 years, then you can reset again to market rent. So, and if you rent out, I've been asked the question again, if you rent out your property now, what happens? So basically, if you rent out your property now, before March 26, the current RPZ rules still apply, which means that rents are capped at 2%, and you can still end the tenancy under the standard clauses, as we discussed earlier, those 5 to 6 clauses under the RTB legislation. But you can't suddenly increase to market rent if the same tenancy continues into 26 and beyond. You've got to have a valid increase. You've got to have a valid reason to terminate the tenancy. So you can't just jump to market rent. Just to bear that in mind, the tenancy has to officially end. And the RTB are now, are imposing quite heavy, serious fines for non-compliance with this new legislation. So, and figures of up to 15,000, in some cases 30,000 have been quoted. So just bear that in mind. So if you have any questions, please just come back to me, because I know it's causing it, particularly for my landlords. I know I've had a lot of questions, but please, if you can just come back to me. Thanks.